Can you hear me now? This is why it pays to pay attention to the chat. Hi, guys. However would I survive without the live chat? Good morning. Rise and freedom. No, don't call me during the show. Whatever you do, don't call me. I'll figure it out. Glad to have you guys here. Oops. Here, hit the Maury button. Do the Maury face. Looks like the joke was really on me. How's my approval rating? Looks like it's in the toilet right now. Right with the Democrats. He needs a Christmas shirt for silent cold opens. Says, I was so amped. Yeah, that's better. I'm back. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm going to do my jokes all over again. It is Monday, March 16th, 2026. I'm Austin Peterson, your executive producer of podcasting, live from the Liberty Tower. And the world is kind of turning upside down right now online, but don't worry. Our pineapples are all right side up, okay? So naughty, naughty. Hit like to get the audio. Good stuff, T-Mill. Good morning. So over the weekend, the mask didn't just slip. It was ripped off by the jaw of the American war machine. So we're diving deep into what's being called the Tucker trap. Did Donald Trump use the biggest media star in the world as a useful idiot to deceive the mullahs in Tehran? If so, based. If so, I will trust the plan, Mr. President. Any plan trusters in here? If not, then I will trust but verify. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We got a ton of guests on the show today. Sadly, no John Miltimore. Sorry. I had 3 guests back-to-back, incredible guests, new names and faces, some old ones that you're going to like. Today, we're going to dive deep into the Tucker Carlson story. Tucker's kind of panicking on X. Is he a martyr? Or is he just a jester who led the Iranian king to the chopping block?
So the other day I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report, to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war. They read my texts. So the crime under consideration apparently would be the Foreign Agent Act or something like that, acting as an agent of a foreign power.
Oh, well, I mean, were you talking to foreign powers about your meetings with the President of the United States? Hay problema. So at 7:30 this morning, we're going to bring in a man who knows the cost of the law, the actual law, better than any pundit in a heated studio. Pastor Joel Richardson joins the program this morning at 7:30 a.m., and he's going to dissect what he calls the total gaslighting we are seeing from these media elites. Tucker Carlson claims he has a, quote, journalist exemption. Well, fair enough. That sounds good. I like to think of myself as something of a journalist. What kind of exemptions are available there? But I don't know that there's ever been a journalist exemption to conduct private diplomacy with the enemy. But Joel Richardson has spent years leading Christian missions in the Iranian underground, and he knows that for normal Americans, one slip in compliance means a life sentence in a federal cage. So we're going to talk about the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the reality of Iranian sanctions, and why nobody, not even a snotty billionaire with a microphone, is above the law. So coming up at 8 a.m. Central, we're joined by Autumn. She's known as Gunpowder and Prayer. She's the vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Mississippi, and she's telling the hard truth that even the anti-war right is starting to realize. Ben Shapiro is dead right about all these grifters. Womp womp. At 8 a.m. Central, we're going to talk moral clarity. We're going to talk J.R. Tolkien, and we're going to talk about why liberty lovers are sick of the performance art. Then at 8:30 a.m. Central, we're going to bring in the big guns. Will Chamberlain from the Article 3 Project will join us to dissect the legal reality and the actual reality. Is Tucker Carlson actually facing a CIA referral, or is he just making up a deep state hoax to cover for the fact that his Iranian backchannels got exposed? Will has the inside track on the unmasking of Tucker's texts, and you do not want to miss that at 8:30 a.m. today. So this show is friggin' packed. Thank God we have audio. Thank God you can actually hear it. Whip out the old Libertarian Party 2008 mug from when I worked there. All right, but listen, guys, we don't just educate on this show, we reward you. So we have some massive bonus content unlocks today, but only if you step up. So if we raise $100 this morning, then you'll unlock the world premiere of our Benedict Arnold biopic. Benedict Arnold, traitor, another traitor. Today, treason is the topic today on America's 250th anniversary. Let's go, America. Let's go. I want America to win. I want the United States to win. Let's give it up for the United States of America, my home, sweet home. Land that our fathers loved, for every mountainside, let freedom ring. So there we go, guys. If we raise $100 today, then you will unlock the Benedict Arnold biopic. Sometimes you have to use Lego toys to explain the biggest traitors in history. At $150, it's the big one, the Great Grift Off. I know you like it. You love it. We'll play mini games right here on the stream. Compete for real prizes from the shop. People like Luddick Lore, who are gifting subscriptions over in the chat, are going to help make it happen. Thank you, Luddick. We appreciate you, too. So every Rumble rant, every sub you buy counts towards the total today. Or head over to forlibertyshop.com. Check out the 250th anniversary collection. Everybody was so jealous of my 250th anniversary polo that Stephanie made. So many people are buying the polo. But this weekend, I got officially inducted into the Sons of the American Revolution. I got pinned by my boyfriend, George Washington. Check it out, guys. So I did all of the ancestry. The National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. This certifies Austin W. Peterson as a member of the Missouri Society. Look at that name there. See that W in the middle? Look at that beautiful gold leaf there. The Missouri Society, Isaac Wade. Austin Wade Peterson, and my ancestor's name, Isaac Wade. I didn't even know. So, is this what it is? Am I the second coming of Isaac Wade, my ancestor? I don't know, but God knows this. I pledge my life, my sacred honor, to the cause of liberty and to try to make my ancestor Isaac Wade proud. Proud to be an American, but at least I know I'm free. All right, guys, the grown-ups are back in the room, and we're singing old songs from the night that should have been put to sleep in the 1980s. There's nothing wrong with a little proud to be an American. When you go to all the Lincoln days, you'll hear it a million times. All right, but the Jester is in trouble. Wake up, America. The show starts now. So it's February 23rd, 2026, right? Not that long ago. The Oval Office is quiet. The air is thick with the scent of cherry wood and the weight of global destiny. Tucker Carlson sits across from Donald Trump. He is leaning in with that famous look of concerned bewilderment, convinced he's the only man on earth brave enough to stop a catastrophe. Tucker is pleading. He's begging the president not to strike Tehran. He's warning of a third world war. He's telling Trump that the mullahs are ready to talk. And across the desk, the president is smiling. He's nodding. He's playing the part of the hesitant warrior. Trump tells him, Tucker, maybe you're right. Maybe we bluff. Maybe we wait. Tucker walks out of that room, radiating triumph. He feels like the shadow Secretary of State. He immediately picks up his encrypted phone. He reaches out to his contacts in the Iranian regime, and he gives them the green light of safety. He tells them, relax, the lion is toothless. I have his ear. But Tucker Carlson did not have Trump's ear. He had a kick me sign on his back. Donald Trump knew Tucker was leaking like a sieve to the enemy. And he used Tucker as a human disinformation channel to ensure the supreme leader was sitting in his palace when the B-21 raiders arrived. Oh. Tucker thought he was saving the world, but he was actually the jester who led the king to the chopping block. You ever seen that movie where they show the monkeys and they go and they have a handful of salt and they reach in and they grab the salt and they can't get out, and that's how they find the water? What is it? The Gods Must Be Crazy? Has anybody seen that movie? The Gods Must Be Crazy. They used the monkey. Tucker was the monkey to find the water hole. 5 days later, February 28th, the sky over Iran turns into a sheet of fire. Operation Epic Fury commences, the most surgical decapitation strike in the history of modern warfare. While the world gasps, Tucker Carlson flips from peacemaker to propagandist overnight. He's stunned. He's embarrassed. He's angry. Suddenly, the man who claimed to be America First starts sounding like a spokesman for the IRGC. He goes on television. He goes on X. He calls the operation disgusting and evil. But it gets worse. On March 3rd, as Iran desperately tries to rally the Muslim world by launching foiled terror attacks in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Tucker drops the bomb. He tells his audience that these were not Iranian plots at all. He claims they were Mossad false flags designed to drag us deeper into war. He's repeating the exact lies being spewed by Iranian state media. The governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar had to publicly deny Tucker's fake news. So think about that. Two sovereign nations had to rebuke an American podcaster because his ego-driven disinformation was threatening the regional stability that we had just fought to secure. No, that's enough with the licking of the Ayatollah. Shouldn't have done that to my boy. Ludic Lore says, are we really in a world where Tucker Carlson might be a modern Benedict Arnold? Listen, bud, I don't make the world as it is. I just do my best to report on it. The receipts are starting to come out. On Saturday night, March the 14th, Tucker Carlson goes live with a panic confession. He reveals or alleges that the CIA is preparing a criminal referral against him to the Trump Justice Department.
Some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war. They read my texts. So the crime under consideration apparently would be the Foreign Agent Act or something like that, acting as an agent of a foreign power. Mm-hmm. And I don't expect this to go anywhere. I'm not too worried about an actual criminal case against me for a bunch of reasons. One, I'm not an agent of a foreign power. Unlike a lot of people commenting on U.S. politics and global affairs, I have only one loyalty, and that's the United States, and have never acted against it. Its interests are the only interests I care about because I'm from here and I have a lot of kids. So that's not a concern. I've also never taken money from anybody. Don't need it, don't want it. And that,
Well, that's also actually not true, because didn't your whole institution get started with a generously large contribution from a foreigner? I mean, Malik, pardon me if I said his name incorrectly there, but I mean, there's so much deception going on here. So if you're coordinating political activities or information campaigns with a foreign principal without disclosing it, you are committing a felony. Tucker claims he's just a journalist, but journalism doesn't involve acting as a direct conduit for enemy propaganda during active combat. Trump has already declared Tucker not MAGA. He said Tucker isn't smart enough to understand the mission. So while Tucker was attempting to play diplomat, not appointed by anyone, by the way, Trump was playing three-dimensional chess, and now the board seems to be closing in, if Tucker is to be believed. But the entitlement on display here is staggering, because Tucker claims he can talk to anyone with zero repercussions. But my next guest coming up live here in a little bit less than 10 minutes caught my attention. Pastor Joel Richardson dropped a truth bomb that shatters this media elite's narcissism. Richardson spent years running Christian ministries in Iran. He knows that under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, coordinating with a sanctioned entity is a fast track to a federal jail cell. So missionaries in this country have to file mountains of paperwork just to help the underground church there. But Tucker thinks that his last name gives him a permit to conduct private foreign policy with terrorists. Richardson calls this what it is: entitled, nonsensical, gaslighting. Everyone has to obey the law, even rich, snotty, entitled men with names like Tucker or Buckley. If Tucker Carlson used his platform to launder IRGC talking points to deceive the American public, that is collaboration with a hostile power. We'll talk to Joel Richardson about that in about 8 minutes. So if you want to see the Benedict Arnold mini documentary instead of a commercial break before Joel, get those Rumble rants in or purchases at forlibertyshop.com. The fastest way to unlock that mini documentary so you can watch it sooner in the show. And you're going to have a few opportunities to watch commercials today because we have 3 guests. But the sooner you unlock it, the faster you'll be able to watch the documentary instead of commercials. So no problem. We'll do a quick commercial break, but hopefully by 8 a.m. we'll have that unlocked, and then we can show you guys the Benedict Arnold mini documentary. But if not, then maybe we'll make it by the end of the show, okay? As late start this morning due to storms. Yeah, I was having some audio difficulty earlier today. Welcome to the show, Matt Unruh, friend of the For Liberty Network. So this is kind of where the CIA receipts on this get deadly. On March the 3rd, Tucker told millions of followers that Saudi Arabia and Qatar had arrested Mossad agents planning bombings. He claimed Israel was blowing up our allies to force us into the conflict. It spread like wildfire across Iranian-linked news outlets. But then the reality hit. On March the 5th, Al Arabia and the Qatari government issued blunt, public, embarrassing denials. They told the world Tucker was lying. Why would 2 sovereign nations waste their time debunking a podcaster? When I go and I check the New York Post or the Wall Street Journal or any of the serious magazines this morning, they're not talking about this. So Austin, why are you talking about this? Well, because I'm probably one of the best people positioned to talk about a story like this. That's why. I just happen to be perfectly positioned to cover this from an angle that is unique. So that's why I talk about this, even though it's not the kind of thing that's going to move. Like, I talked to a lot of my boomer friends here in Jefferson City, and after Trump threw him under the bus, they were done with him as well. They're like, oh, Tucker, I miss when he used to be good. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But things have really changed and taken a dramatic turn for the worse, if even the boomers are finding out what's going on, because they're not reporting it on Fox News today. So he's acting allegedly as a courier for the enemy. I mean, the Saudis call bullshit. Qatar calls bullshit. Now the American justice system is maybe calling his number. I mean, the anti-war movement has been exposed as an anti-American movement. Tucker Carlson thought he was untouchable because he's been rich his whole life. He's a Nepo baby. His dad was CIA, and he couldn't get in, and it seems to me that he's got a bone to pick with the agency, I guess. right? He thought he could play both sides, Trump versus Iran, and that he would, in the end, be hailed as a prophet. Instead, he may have been a useful idiot who unknowingly helped Trump remove the head of the snake in Tehran. But the fact that he was useful does not make him innocent. He betrayed the trust of his audience, if so. He betrayed the security of our allies. And if the CIA receipts show he was acting as an agent of the mullahs, he may have betrayed his country. We are a nation of laws, and justice is coming for the grifters, the liars, and the actual traitors, those Benedict Arnolds. And good. Tucker's ego may have sold the deception. The Ayatollah bought it, and now the Jester is facing the consequences. So is the show over? Well, the truth is just beginning. Pastor Joel Richardson. So coming up, guys, Pastor Joel Richardson joins me to dissect Tucker Carlson's journalist exemption gaslighting. If missionaries face life in prison for Iranian compliance, why does Tucker think he's above the law? The truth about sanctions and subversion is next. Stay tuned. It's the Wake Up America show, and that's on the For Liberty Network. No foreign money.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Tucker, I want you to come to the White House. Believe me.
Me? I mean, sure. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm just bluffing with Iran, you know?
Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. It's time to wake up, America. Over the weekend, Tucker Carlson dismissed the CIA's potential criminal referral that he's alleging, dismissed it as nonsensical gaslighting, claiming that as an American journalist, he can talk to anyone with zero repercussions. But while Tucker plays the martyr for the anti-war crowd, real Americans on the ground in the Middle East are calling bullshit. I mean, there are laws in this country, strict, lethal, unforgiving laws like the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Now, that law governs every single interaction with the Iranian regime. If a Christian ministry so much as transfers $1 to an underground church without rigorous compliance, their board members face federal prison for the rest of their lives. So why does a rich, snotty, entitled pundit think that he gets a pass on laws like these? Joining me now to bring a dose of moral and legal reality is Joel Richardson. Pastor Joel Richardson joins us live. Good morning, Pastor. Welcome to the Wake Up America show.
Good morning, Austin. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us here. Pastor, you tweeted that Tucker Carlson's claim of zero repercussions is the epitome of entitled gaslighting. What do you mean?
Well, I highlighted the fact that for several years I had been the chairman of the board of a ministry that was overseeing what was really probably the most viral underground Christian or Protestant Christian movement in Iran. And, during that time, we were very well aware that Iran is a nation under very strict sanctions from the United States. And so, getting funds into Iran, you have to jump through all of the hoops. You have to get approval, you have to apply. And if you don't abide by these, even if you're literally getting money to a Christian ministry, the board members are liable. We could, that's a violation of federal law, and these are federal crimes. We could spend the rest of our lives in federal prisons. So when Tucker comes out and says, I'm an American, I can talk to whoever I want. I made a post saying that's BS. Everyone has to abide by the law. You have, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. You have all sorts of different restrictions. And, listen, whether or not Tucker's claims that the DOJ is opening up a case against him, whether or not the CIA actually has been monitoring his texts, it's hard to know. He's been caught lying. But if this is true, then the simple fact is he has to abide by the laws just like everyone else.
Now, he says he's just a journalist, but he was, even, apparently by his own admission here, talking to Iranian officials before and during active combat. So do we know at what point talking crosses the line into criminal violations? How familiar are you with like the, not just the transferring of money, but how much are you allowed to speak to Iranian officials?
Yeah, so I mean, the again, Foreign Agent Registration Act, there's a prescription against communicating with a hostile government in particular, and whether or not it's a crime, it's really contingent on who the foreign client is, if you're receiving money, but it doesn't, this is important, it doesn't have to involve receiving money. It's really just an issue of restricting lobbying, U.S. officials or foreign officials. Now, what's interesting is this act was passed, I believe, and I might have this wrong, I think it was 1938. So it was to restrict Nazis in the United States from, communicating with the German government. And I kind of find it ironic that it's becoming an issue again. Now, for the most part, this hasn't been something that's been prosecuted widely until Trump's first round, when during the whole, Russiagate kind of thing came up. And if you remember, Paul Manafort, who was Trump's, his campaign, I think he was campaign advisor, I'm not sure what his title was. He ended up going to prison over this. And so if it's shown that Tucker was indeed talking to Iranian officials, and, sharing information or this type of thing, it's going to be a clear violation. Now, again, time will tell. This is a fresh story. But the bottom line is, I don't care if you're a Tucker Carlson supporter or not. There are laws. And if you're communicating with a hostile foreign government, sharing information, then in my opinion, and look, the punishment is only up to 5 years in prison. I mean, it's actually pretty mild compared to, think about this, if I had violated, or if the ministry had violated giving funds to a Christian ministry, I could have spent the rest of my life in federal prison. But yet, if he's sharing information with Iran, worst case, he might spend 5 years in prison. Now, maybe it could be more. Maybe, he could be found guilty of treason. I'm really not sure. Again, I'm in ministry. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, we've got a lawyer coming on to answer questions like that at 8:30. So an hour from now, I hope our audience will stick around because I've got an absolutely packed show today. And Joel Richardson, you're the first of many great guests, and I'm grateful for your time. Now, you seem a little upset about this. I mean, the language you used in your tweet was you said rich, snotty, entitled men with names like Tucker or Buckley. So do you believe that this is part of a broader trend where these media elites feel like they're a protected class above the average citizen? Or, you sound very upset.
No, look, absolutely. Again, if you are coordinating messaging on behalf of, and let's just be very clear, an apocalyptic death cult, the government of Iran, the regime of Iran, what they do, who they are, is evil. And Tucker, he's not simply a journalist. He is absolutely an activist. And he is an anti-MAGA activist. His program, his effort is to undermine not just Tucker, but there's a whole sort of emerging class of these sort of, former QAnon, alt-right, whatever you want to call them, the right dissident, alt-Reich. They want to undermine the American conservative movement, this movement that's, sort of swept the country over the past 12 years, because they want a Kamala. They want someone who is so incredibly incompetent, so incredibly annoying, that after 4 or 8 years, after the country is completely destroyed, then they can put in one of their autocratic fascist dictators. A lot of them are following the game plan, quite literally, of Russia. A lot of people have heard of Alexander Dugin, who is, he's been interviewed by Tucker. He was interviewed by Alex Jones just 2 months ago, and they celebrate him as just this sort of Russian political philosopher. But the reality is he is, and this is not an exaggeration, he is a disciple of Aleister Crowley. Like, he is a Luciferian occultist posing as a political philosopher. And what he wants to see is the collapse of the Western order. He wants to see the collapse of the United States, the monopolar dominance of the United States. And he wants to see the rise of Russia, China, and, all of these other powers. And unfortunately, it looks like folks like Tucker seem to be playing right into his hand.
Now, I want to talk about those items that you brought up there in just a moment. I have some further questions on that. But before we do, because you're here sort of as an expert in the matters of the church, in your work with the underground church, you've seen the brutality of the Iranian regime firsthand. So what is the moral cost of an American pundit laundering the propaganda about things like Mossad false flags?
Exactly.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's a great example. And this is evidence that Tucker very well may have been a pawn of Iran. It's in the Iranian news. Iran sent agents into Saudi Arabia and Qatar to attack their oil facilities, and then they claimed that it was Mossad. Now, of course, Tucker came out and said, now, this is not in the mainstream media, but I have, information. And again, he parrots their information. Well, where did he get that from? He's parroting Iranian propaganda. Who is the regime? Look, my Christian friends, they literally, and this is not an exaggeration, they had to resolve with their wives, if the secret police come, if they come, and if they, kill me, and if they rape you, we will not bend the knee. We will not renounce Jesus. If that happens, the women would say, I will give my body to Jesus. Like, if that is the cost I have to pay. And that's a reality. That's not an exaggeration. That's not sensationalism. The government themselves, oftentimes, that's what they would rape, not just the women, but the men, either literally or with objects in order to try to break the Christians. Now, that's not across the boards, but these things absolutely do happen, sanctioned by the government. You have statements like saying, if they're a virgin, you make sure you rape them first so that they won't go to heaven. and this type of thing. It is a brutal, horrible government. They slaughtered over 100,000 of their own people over the past couple months for protesting against the regime. And I don't care. I'm a libertarian I'm a conservative libertarian in the truest sense. I don't care where you stand politically. This is evil. And for an American journalist to be, working with or parroting their propaganda is evil. I mean, Tucker has openly said, look, he talks out both sides of his mouth. With regard to Hamas, one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world, he goes, some people say they're a terrorist organization. I don't know that they are. To me, they just seem like a political it's insanity. And rational, sober thinking people need to recognize that when you have a journalist who's working with terrorist organizations or, again, an apocalyptic death cult, he's an activist. He is a political activist. And if he is found guilty, then quite frankly, I do hope he goes to jail for the rest of his life. And I hope that he's abused by the inmates, and maybe that could lead to him actually finding Jesus as opposed to this fake conversion that he's recently found.
That's Pastor Joel Richardson. Pastor, thank you for joining us this morning, being so generous with your time. We've only got you for maybe 10 more minutes or so, and we've got a lot of ground to cover here. Tucker Carlson has been highly critical of Christian Zionists. I see you have a menorah sitting on this shelf there behind you, but I note you're not Jewish. In an October 2025 interview with Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson said he dislikes Christian Zionists more than anybody, meaning, more than Hamas, more than Hezbollah, more than the murderers of the North Korean government, more than Vladimir Putin. He dislikes Christian Zionists more than anybody. And he says that Christian Zionism is a brain virus that has seized people like Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Ted Cruz, and others. He labels it a Christian heresy that offends him as a Christian, arguing that tying Christian faith to unconditional support for Israeli government actions, including what he sees as violence or wars, isn't authentic Christianity. How do you respond to that?
Well, yeah, so what he does is he mixes truths with complete twisted lies. It's absolutely a paper tiger. I am a Christian Zionist because I believe that as a Christian, I'm called to be a good human. I'm called to be a good neighbor. I live in one of the most heavily Jewish neighborhoods in the whole Midwest. I have, Jewish neighbors that are afraid where they're going to send their kids to college. So for me, Christian Zionism is very simple. I believe that Israel has a right to exist, and they have a right to self-determination, which is to say they have a right to defend themselves if they get attacked. Look, as I said, I'm a conservative libertarian. If someone comes into my home and takes my kids, I will tear the universe apart to get my kids back, and no one in the world can lecture me otherwise. Israel has a right to exist just like Canada or Bhutan or Venezuela, any country in the world. Like, everyone has a right to exist. And for the most part, Zionists are just people that want a safe place in the world where they can raise their kids. Now, there's other forms of more strict political Zionism. And that's not, we don't need to get into all the different layers of what Zionism is, but the simple idea that Jews have a right to live in their land, first of all, it's biblical. It is undeniable. He calls it a heresy. He doesn't even know what a heresy is. A heresy is a denial of one of the most foundational, essential doctrines of the historical Christian faith, arguably a doctrine that if you hold to it, you've lost your salvation. And the scriptures are clear. Look at Psalm 105, verses 6 through 11 or 12-ish. The Lord clearly promised to the children of Israel to give them that piece of property forever. So apart from just being a good human, a good neighbor, if you believe in the Bible, you cannot deny that God made an everlasting covenant to give the people of Israel that land forever. And to call it a heresy is incredible ignorance. He just had this former beauty queen, Carrie Jean, whatever her name is, on his show and saying the same. Two recent Catholic converts pretending as though they understand the Bible, talking about things that they have that they're completely ignorant of. It's embarrassing.
Now, in February 2026, he interviewed Mike Huckabee. He challenged biblical claims about Israel's land rights, questioning if modern Israel fits ancient promises and probing how that theology justifies expansive U.S. support or expansive claims of land or U.S. support. What were your thoughts on that?
Look, people keep saying, they talk about what's called the Greater Israel Project, like Israel wants to expand throughout the Middle East. Israel has no desire to control the whole Middle East. It's one of the stupidest conspiracy theories, nonsensical. Most often, this Greater Israel idea, it comes from Christians who don't really understand the Middle East. They put some map on the internet, and then the Muslims and all of the anti-Semites look at it and go, look what these Jews want to do. It was usually created by some Christian prophecy, folks who support Israel. Israel simply wants the piece of property that they have. They want some place in the world that they can raise their kids without being killed. It's that simple. And so the United States supports Israel because they're an ally, because they're one of our greatest allies. And really, they are at the forefront of what is the clash of the future, which is radical Islam against the Western world. This is inevitable. Israel is at the front lines of fighting these terrorist organizations, and they're an ally, and so we should treat them like an ally. But I forget what the original point of the question was, but the point is Tucker, he mixes things, he commits category errors. He takes two things that sound similar, he mixes them together, and he makes straw man arguments. And he attacks people who are simply, again, just rational conservative Americans that believe we should stand with our neighbors, stand with our allies, and stand for Western values like freedom and liberty.
Pastor, tell us a little bit about what you're working on these days. If there's anything that you think we missed in this topic, final thoughts, closing, websites you like to plug, you can share any of that with our audience now if you'd like.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm at joelstrumpet.com. I've got a YouTube channel, Joel Richardson. Mostly I'm just teaching through the Bible these days, trying to stay out of politics when possible. But, things are coming to a head lately, and I don't see a lot of sort of biblical commentary on some of these things. So I'm starting to wade into some of the controversies that are brewing. It's getting crazy. I mean, it's a very, very strange time in American political history. I've never seen anything this bizarre. So just trying to bring some clarity and some kingdom-centered commentary to a lot of these things.
Pastor Joel Richardson, thank you for joining us live this morning, being so generous with your time. We wish you the best. Have a good day.
Blessings, Austin.
Thank you.
Josh says, quote, Dear Ben, I've been watching a lot of your adversarial interviews lately, and I've noticed that once they run out of arguments, they always fall back on the Israel issue. Yeah, I noticed that too. I noticed this especially in Megyn Kelly's defense of Tucker Carlson, where she claimed that your issue with him and recently her all boiled down to Israel, which I believe is an incorrect characterization. They just find it convenient to blame Israel instead of facing the actual points you are making. My question is, how do you deal with people like this? People that anytime you disagree with them, just say the reason you disagree with them is because of Israel. I like the way Matt Walsh said it, people that are Israel first but from the opposite direction, meaning the first thing they care about is being anti-Israel. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So yes, they're lying. Megyn is lying and so is Tucker. I mean, period. They're just lying. Okay. I started originally criticizing Tucker Carlson for his economic programs back in 2018. And then in the more modern post-Fox iteration of Tucker, I started criticizing Tucker over his going to Russia to sniff the bread and kiss Vladimir Putin's ass. My generalized critique.
Wake up, America. It's Monday, March 16th, 2026. This is the date that the fault lines of the American right finally gave way. So to understand the truth, you have to go back to the origin point of the betrayal. December 18th, 2025, Phoenix, Arizona. The air is cold, the tension is suffocating, and the entire conservative world is gathered for America Fest. The mood is somber because Charlie Kirk has been dead for 3 months, assassinated on a college campus in September. Ben Shapiro walks onto that stage. He doesn't give the audience red meat. He gives them a reckoning. He looks into the camera and he warns the Republican Party about the charlatans and the grifters who traffic in bile and despair. He's standing in the lion's den, calling out the very people sitting in the front row. He bashes Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson by name for refusing to denounce the conspiracy theories targeting Charlie's widow, Erica Kirk. He then later takes the same stage and snipes back. Tucker Carlson snipes back, asking why Ben is trying to deplatform people at a memorial event. And this was kind of the moment that the mask fell. This was the moment when we realized that one side wants to build a civilization based on truth, and the other wants to build a circus based on the body count. Let's talk about Megyn Kelly, the woman who claims that she made Ben Shapiro. So the arrogance is staggering. I mean, Megyn Kelly, she's not a constitutionalist. She's a weather vane. She bases her moral compass on wherever the audience deposits their attention. Remember NBC, Megyn? Remember when she left Fox News and tried to become the next Oprah? On June 29th, 2018, she featured Dr. Marcy Bowers, a transgender surgeon, to discuss how to support gender transitions. On February 20th, 2018, she hosted an 11-year-old transgender girl named Chazzy to celebrate her journey. She was nodding along to progressive narratives. She was desperate to be loved by the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And when that failed, when her ratings crashed and NBC showed her the door, she came running back to the right. Not out of conviction, but out of necessity. She's a symbol of our cultural excess, a product of the look at me economy. She says Ben is emasculated for wanting to police guests. But Ben is the only one showing the strength to lose subscribers, maybe him and me, to lose our subscribers in exchange for the truth. Megyn Kelly doesn't have an ideology. She has a ratings chart. And if you want to see the fruits of Megyn Kelly's so-called free speech defense, look at the monster she's protecting. Last week, March 9th, 2026, Candace Owens released a series titled The Bride of Charlie. It's not journalism. It's a psychotic assault on a grieving widow. Owens is actively mocking Erica Kirk, calling her a fraud, insinuating she was involved in sex trafficking scandals. She's claiming without a shred of evidence that Egyptian surveillance planes were tracking Erica before the assassination. She's reposting Groyper talking points that suggest Israel was involved in Charlie's death. And where is Megyn Kelly? She's on her podcast defending Candace's right to ask questions. She's defending a woman who is intentionally endangering the life of a mother and a widow. Ben Shapiro's the only one with the guts to say, no, this is evil, this is a lie, and we will not tolerate it. Ben bases his views, and always has, on the fact that Charlie was killed by a lone actor, a leftist who trooned out, while Megyn bases her views on the fact that conspiracies get more clicks. Then we have Tucker Carlson. Oh, sad. Tucker Carlson, who used to give gems but now gives slop. On Friday, March 13th, Tucker went on Piers Morgan's show to attack Ben Shapiro's Harvard degree. He called Ben and Bill Ackman not even close to geniuses, talking about the pot calling the kettle black here. Tucker's so desperate to distract from the fact that he's been caught allegedly acting as a conduit for Iranian disinformation that he has to resort to academic slurs. Ben Shapiro spent November 2025 calling Tucker an intellectual coward and an ideological launderer for hosting the Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. Ben used actual clips, actual evidence. Facts don't care about our feelings after all, to show that Tucker was giving legitimacy to Nick Fuentes' hateful ideology. And Tucker's response, he says he laughed. He laughed at the criticism. He says it's deplatforming. No, it's not deplatforming. It's called accountability. You don't get to call yourself a leader if you're willing to sacrifice the memory of 6 million on the altar of an engagement algorithm. Wake up, America. The contrast between Shapiro and the triad of Kelly, Tucker, and Owens is the contrast between reason and rage. Ben Shapiro bases his arguments on data, on history, on the second-order effects of policy. When he criticizes a position, he does this from a position of Western survival. Megyn Kelly, she criticizes the war on how it makes her feel or how her audience feels. She accuses Ben makes ridiculous claims and never backs them up, and then gets behind the argument, oh, well, it's free speech, right? Well, free speech doesn't mean no accountability. Now, does it? Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. So follow the people who flip-flop based on their contracts, or follow the man who held the same principle since he was 17 years old. Choose the feelings of the fringe or the facts of civilization builders. Megyn Kelly represents the hollowing out of discourse, the moment when celebrity overtook convictions. Ben Shapiro represents the measured, rigorous, unflinching defense of Western values. Trump has already drawn the line. He excommunicated Tucker, labeled him not MAGA, and he's watching the rest of the pack. This realignment isn't just about politics. It is about character. Ben Shapiro has it. Megyn Kelly traded hers for a like button. Wake up, America. Choose the truth over the trend. Okay, now, coming up, The line between principled dissent and naked treachery. As Tucker Carlson claims the CIA is targeting him, we're asking if the America First movement has traded its soul for ad revenue. Autumn from the Libertarian Party of Mississippi joins me to discuss why even a Ron Paul libertarian admits Ben Shapiro is right about the grifters. Stay tuned.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the
bustling port of Norwich, Connecticut, on January 14th, 1741, a boy was born who would one day be hailed as a lion of the Revolution, then cursed as its greatest villain. Benedict Arnold came from old Rhode Island stock, descendants of governors and merchants. But life hit hard early. 11 children in the family. Only he and one sister survived to adulthood. Yellow fever claimed the rest, and his father's business crumbled under debt and drink. Young Benedict was sent off at 11 to apprentice with an apothecary in New Haven, learning the trade of drugs and trade goods, but nursing a burning ambition that never quite found peace. By his 20s, Arnold was a merchant captain, sailing sloops loaded with rum, horses, and West Indies sugar through stormy seas and British customs nets. He hated the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, every tax that squeezed his profits. He joined the Sons of Liberty, smashed windows in New Haven protests, and burned effigies of tax collectors. When Lexington and Concord exploded in April 1775, Arnold didn't wait for orders. As captain of the governor's 2nd Company of Guards, he seized New Haven's powder magazine, marched his men north, and rode hell for leather to Cambridge. There he pitched a wild plan, seize Fort Ticonderoga's cannon to bombard the British out of Boston. The Massachusetts Committee gave him a colonel's commission. He linked up with Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys at Castleton. The two egos clashed, Arnold in his crisp blue coat demanding command, Allen's buckskin ruffians refusing to follow a down-country outsider, but they agreed to share the glory. May 10, 1775. Under moonless dark, they rowed across icy Lake Champlain in bateau, stormed the sleeping British garrison without firing a shot. In the name of the great Jehovah and the Continental Congress, Arnold bellowed as the redcoats surrendered. 83 cannon fell into Patriot hands, the iron that would thunder from Dorchester Heights and force the British evacuation. Arnold wasn't satisfied. He pushed north, captured Crown Point, then dreamed bigger. Take Canada, make it the 14th colony. Washington himself picked him for the insane march. September 1775. Arnold led 1,100 men through Maine's wilderness, raging rivers, black swamps, snow in September. They portaged bateau over mountains, ate dogs, boiled shoe leather, lost hundreds to starvation and desertion. But Arnold got 600 survivors to the plains of Abraham outside Quebec by November. Reinforced by Montgomery, they attacked on New Year's Eve blizzard. Arnold charged at the head, musket ball shattering his leg below the knee. Blood freezing in his boot, he refused to leave the field until the assault failed. Montgomery dead, the army broken, Arnold limped away on a makeshift litter, still barking orders. Back in the fight by summer 1776, he built a scratch fleet on Lake Champlain, gondolas and schooners hammered together from green timber. At Valcour Island in October, outnumbered 3-1 by Carleton's British Armada, Arnold fought a savage running battle. then slipped his battered ships through the enemy line under cover of night. He delayed the invasion of New York for a year, time the Patriots desperately needed. His finest hour came at Saratoga, 1777. Passed over for promotion by Congress, jealous rivals, petty politics, Arnold seethed under Horatio Gates' command. But when Burgoyne attacked on October 7th, Arnold, relieved of duty but unable to sit idle, leapt onto his horse, rallied troops without orders, and led a mad charge straight into Hessian lines. "Come on, boys!" he roared, saber flashing. His brigade smashed Bremen's redoubt. His horse shot from under him, leg shattered again by a musket ball, the same leg. Burgoyne surrendered 10 days later. Saratoga turned the war. France joined. The tide shifted. Washington called Arnold's actions decisive. But glory soured fast. Court-martials over minor charges, promotions delayed while lesser men rose, endless slights from Congress. Arnold married Peggy Shippen, a loyalist beauty from Philadelphia. Debts piled up from wartime expenses, he fronted himself. Resentment festered into bitterness. By 1779, secret letters flowed to British headquarters. In 1780, as commander of West Point, he offered to sell the fortress, key to the Hudson, for $20,000 sterling and a brigadier's commission in red. September 21st, 1780, he met Major John Andre in the woods near Haverstraw. Plans exchanged, Andre captured 2 days later by militia irregulars with incriminating papers in his boot. Word reached Arnold at breakfast with Washington himself. He bolted, horse thundering down the river road, British sloop Vulture waiting to whisk him to safety. Washington, stunned, ordered Andre hanged as a spy on October 2nd. Arnold escaped, but the plot collapsed. West Point held, the Hudson stayed American. Arnold fought on for the British, raiding Virginia, burning Richmond, torching New London in 1781, his own birthplace. But the war ended in defeat. He fled to London with Peggy and their children, lived out his days in exile, shunned, pensioned, haunted. Died June 14, 1801, buried in an unmarked grave at St. Mary's Church, Battersea. He was brave beyond measure, brilliant in tactics, ferocious in battle. He bled twice for liberty, turned the course at Saratoga, gave the cannons that freed Boston. Yet in the end, pride, grievance, and gold outweighed honor. His name became poison, a synonym for betrayal that echoes still. But strip away the treason, and what remains is one of the Revolution's fiercest warriors, a man who could have been a legend if only he had held fast. In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
The destructive revolutionaries, they have no plan for America. They're just destroyers. And incidentally, some of those in the Yippie group are the same way. You ask them what they're for. They're not for anything, they're just against. They're like the Latin American revolutionaries that you see from time to time, and I've seen some in Asia. That's the modern trend. They're just against. What you must do is to withdraw from them their spear carriers. And the way you withdraw from them their spear carriers is to give their spear carriers another cause. Something which is meaningful, something where we can be for something. That is why I say that when we talk about law and order, which I am strongly for, because I do not think you can have progress without order, and I do not think you can have freedom without order. But at the same time, you must couple that with justice. You must couple it with justice and progress, because only if you have justice and progress and the hope that an individual can get out of that ghetto where he lives, that he can go up and not just stay where he is, only if he has that hope, is he going to be less susceptible to the revolutionary arguments of the Rap Browns and the rest.
Thank you, Richard Nixon. It's almost like he was talking about me and libertarian nationalism. Wake up, America. For the last 72 hours, the conservative podcast sphere has looked less like a brain trust and more like a Jerry Springer episode. We have Megyn Kelly calling Ben Shapiro emasculated, using Insults about penises with Mark Levin. Candace Owens spinning wild tales about the widow of the late Charlie Kirk. But beyond the personal jabs, there is a deep, systemic, civilizational divide. On one side, you have Ben Shapiro. He's the man who's standing in the breach against the conspiracy peddlers. On the other, you have the people who are captives of their audiences. The people who have become so reactionary, they're now repeating the propaganda of the mullahs in Iran. Tucker Carlson claims the CIA is targeting him under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. But is he a martyr for free speech, or has he become a useful idiot for an enemy state? Join me now to dissect the difference between principled liberty and naked idolatry is the vice chair of the Libertarian Party in Mississippi. She's the director of the Freedom Bell Company and a very refreshing voice for moral clarity. A Ron Paul libertarian like myself, Autumn Fox, better known as Gunpowder and Prayer. Good morning, Autumn, and welcome to the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here.
Morning. Glad to be here.
So, Autumn, you posted on about Ron Paul. You said you're a Ron Paul and you're a Thomas Massie libertarian. You disagree with Ben Shapiro quite often, but you admit he's dead right about the grifters he's speaking against. What do you mean?
Well, we seem to have a bunch of members of our leadership, or not really leadership, but influencers who are completely captivated on finding what will get the audience attention rather than what is true. And they're willing to join any club that is popular. Right now, there's a lot of popularity and going alongside with other popular grifters, as we say, and just going along with what is the latest thing. For the past couple of years, it's been weird conspiracies that everything is done by a few people, and unfortunately,
what you made me just think of, Autumn, is it reminds me of that meme during the COVID-19 years that we used to attack the left, where it was the NPC and they were full of the vaccines and they were saying, I support the current thing. And it's kind of like they have they've become a right-wing version of that. I support the current thing, kind of a NPC behavior.
They definitely have. Although I would argue a lot of them are not truly right-wing. Like, if you look at, say, popular speaker Candace Owens, she's never been right-wing. Mm-hmm. She's been a leftist her entire time since her social autopsy days.
Compared
and she's
to
still
us,
a leftist.
Everybody in the Republican Party is a leftist compared to us, Ron Paul libertarian types, Autumn.
Yeah.
Because we're so...
A lot of them really are.
They are. You're right.
Libertarians are more right-wing than Republicans are, especially if they're true libertarians and not some person with a boot on their head pretending to be a libertarian.
Exactly. Thank you, Autumn. I remember I ran for president that year. I remember Vernon Supreme. Thank you very much. I have my mug from when I was working at the Libertarian Party way back in 2008, right during my Ron Paul years. So I'm with you. I got into the liberty movement and into politics because of Ron Paul. But it's been, it's 2026, 2008. Look at how faded this mug is, Autumn. It's been a long time. On some things, maybe I've changed my mind. But one thing I've always kind of retained is the right to think for myself. And there very much is a strong, aggressive groupthink that the liberty movement ironically beats everybody into, sort of bullies everyone into submission. If you don't support this, then you're not a real libertarian. It's very aggressive for these. I call them I call them Napsies, because they're non-aggression principle, but they're kind of like Nazis about it. What's your take on it? I mean, you're still a member of the Libertarian Party. I quit and joined the Republicans. So tell me what you see.
Yeah, I see it a lot in the Libertarian Party. You have to agree with everything, or you're supposedly not a libertarian. And you have to agree with the libertarian popular speakers, and a lot of them, podcasters that just copy each other, and they don't even do their own homework. They'll literally just copy each other's videos and saying what each other said. And had they actually done their own homework, some of them might figure out, guess what? The person you copied was wrong. But
no, I've never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen once in all my 20 years of campaigning.
No.
Now, so let's talk about that for a moment, Autumn, because what we're really talking about here is audience capture, right? Where pundits feed the mob what it wants to hear. It's like, I know my audience, Autumn. I know what they want to hear, and they don't want to hear you and I talking like this. They want to hear us non-aggression principle, war. They want us to say the typical things that, because like you said, when I texted you, you said, so basically we're just going to make a lot of libertarians mad. Yeah, but but here's the thing. I care about what is true, no matter what my tribe believes is true. Ben Shapiro, he's been willing to be unpopular to remain factual. It's kind of a heresy these days. It used to be okay to like Ben Shapiro and be a libertarian. I always did. But now he's been kind of cast out, and he's the bad guy now here in the United States. What's your take on that?
Yeah. He's definitely been made the bad guy of every issue, apparently. And it seems like most of the people disagreeing with him, they don't even listen to what he says on the various issues. They'll focus on one issue, and one issue is the reason why he's wrong on everything else he could ever say, no matter what. He could be like, big government bad, and they'd be like, some libertarian would say he's wrong.
Right. Well, a lot of this has to do with kind of like the Jewish mania that the libertarian movement has really got. I call it Jew spurging because these people can't talk about anything. I'm fine talking about Israel. I'm fine talking about Jews. I have no problem having discussions and debates and disagreements. But there's like a certain type of person where it's like it's their whole personality, and there's like they're not even Jewish, and it's like you can't talk about anything else. And it's kind of it gets to the point of, okay, what are we doing here, right? There does seem to be like a crossing of the line over what might be considered okay. Are we libertarians or are we Hitlerites?
Yeah.
There's an odd horseshoe effect that sometimes happens, isn't there, Autumn, with libertarians? So because you see a lot of these, you see a lot of like the popular libertarian podcasters, and they seem to have more in common with like Nick Fuentes than with myself or perhaps yourself. Isn't that odd?
It is, especially since Nick Fuentes is very far from being a libertarian.
Right.
Very far. And
right.
a lot of them, they're willing to go along with anyone who's not a libertarian in the very least, and pretend all these non-libertarians are libertarians, and then ignore actual libertarians if they're not completely brainwashed into this latest obsession that they've become captured by.
Autumn, you list on your X profile that you are a J.R.R. Tolkien and a C.S. Lewis enthusiast. In The Lord of the Rings, Saruman thought that he could collaborate with Sauron to manipulate the outcome. Is Tucker Carlson falling into the same trap, thinking he can play shadow diplomat with the Iranian government without getting burned?
He may be. He's definitely getting involved in some things he should not be. Me personally, and I can't prove 100% this, but I've been saying for a while he's part of generations of glories, and he's part of the elite in the Fed circle controlling things. I think he is, his son is, his dad was. I think it goes back generations. When I look at their history, the more, not all it's publicly available, but what is, it glows. And maybe I'm just being a libertarian calling everyone a Fed, but I don't know.
Candace Owens is now promoting a series called The Bride of Charlie, targeting Erica Kirk. What are your thoughts on that?
A lot of people say it looks like she's a woman scorned, and it really kind of does a little bit. And to be honest, I don't think she and Charlie have been friends for many years.
Yeah, Megyn Kelly apparently also feuding with Ben Shapiro. So she went from promoting trans narratives on NBC, far back as 2018, to now she's a radical populist on independent media. Who's the real civilization builder, Ben Shapiro or Megyn Kelly?
The one that changes their mind every time something becomes popular, or actually has a foundation of what their principles are built on? Civilizations that go with popularity fall fast. Civilizations with a firm foundation stand tall. There's a difference.
So the question here, you know, Ben Shapiro, his whole statement is, or at least his mantra is, facts don't care about your feelings. But if I could talk to Ben Shapiro today, I would say the truth is really that feelings don't care about your facts. And isn't that what we're seeing with this online ecosystem, Autumn, that it's really just a feelings-based economy, not truly facts?
It's definitely more feelings-based than facts. And unfortunately, when people become enwrapped in their feelings, like the mass psychosis we are seeing now, and mass psychosis attempts we've seen in the past, such as with COVID and stuff, people don't care about what the facts say. During COVID, people didn't care that the shots were not working and killing people. And right now, people don't care that a lot of the information being pushed is false. They just care that they like this person or hate this person, or is obsessed with one issue not even being discussed.
If the Department of Justice actually drops an indictment on Tucker based on coordination with Iranian intelligence, do you think that that is a legitimate crime, or do you think that that's just free speech?
It depends on what the context is and the intentions. There's so much of the story we don't know yet, so we don't really know what's happening. And some people are saying it's coming out more and more that Tucker may have made it all up. And we don't know yet. We really don't. So it's hard to say.
No
it wouldn't
way.
be surprising people.
He wouldn't. To think he would ever do something like that? You think Tucker Carlson would go on camera and just tell lies?
The guy who said he was attacked by demons in bed. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly. Yes.
Either he was attacked by demons and he's still demon possessed, because I don't think he's had his exorcism yet, or he wasn't, and he lied.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, one thing is for certain, though, Autumn, I think we all know, is that he'll portray himself as a martyr. And the rest of us, I mean, I'm with you, Autumn. I'm more on the side of, just default, just assume that he's a Fed because his dad was CIA.
Yeah.
We know that
Tucker admitted he interviewed with the CIA.
Yeah, he admitted he interviewed the CIA, but either he got in and he's lying to us all and he's been CIA fed the whole time, or he didn't get in and it seems as if this is all some sort of weird payback. I mean, Autumn, I don't know how long you've been in the Liberty movement, but I was there. I would in 2008. Do you go back that far? Were you involved in the Ron Paul days of 2008?
I was still a kid then. But
okay, I figured you're much younger than me.
I was.
Well, I look much younger than I am, but here's what I remember, Autumn. I was at Ron Paul's rally for the Republic in Minnesota in 2008, and I was cheering as loud as I could. Tucker Carlson and Jesse Ventura were kind of like headlining the event, and Tucker Carlson was the MC. And Tucker was there, and I think he had brought a couple of prostitutes to the event that night as kind of a joke to gin up some media attention. And I think Ron Paul's people were kind of upset and offended by it because, Ron Paul's very conservative in his social manners and behaviors. And so I remember that Tucker Carlson was showing up to that, and it was this big fiasco. And then Tucker Carlson got deeply offended by something that Jesse Ventura said, which was that Jesse Ventura suggested that the 9/11 attacks were an inside job by George W. Bush. And Tucker Carlson stormed out, left us in the lurch without a host for the event because he was so offended by the conspiracy theories that 9/11 was an inside job by Jesse Ventura. Now he can't do enough 9/11, insinuations about 9/11 truth. So back when the 9/11 truth movement was sort of in its heyday, he couldn't be bothered there. He had to call us all out and abandon us. But then once it became highly profitable online, we now see a new Tucker Carlson, right? But we're supposed to believe we're supposed to believe that it was a sincere change of heart on his part. But I'm not buying it, Autumn. Why aren't you buying it? You're a Ron Paul libertarian like me, maybe not as old as I am, but why aren't you buying it, Autumn? Everybody in the Liberty movement is buying it. Why aren't you getting on board? Get on board. Get on board or else.
Yeah. I think with my own brain, not my friends' brains. I love my friends, but I don't care how much I like someone in the libertarian movement. If I think they're wrong, and I'm sticking to my.
Same.
But
they call you.
It's funny.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you mentioned like how he used to be so against questioning 9/11. Now he's, and of course, we're libertarians. We question everything.
Sure.
And I believe there's at least 1,000 conspiracy theories I can tell you I believe are true. But like now today, he's carrying water for Islam and trying to pretend Islam is America's best friend when he used to say it was the evil it really is. And you can't be America first, actually, and carry water for ideology that wants America destroyed.
Yeah.
Like this is a totalitarian ideology.
Yeah, thank you, Autumn. Thanks for calling it. You know what? It would be a lot easier to support libertarians if they talked like you, Autumn. Because if you want to talk about a real conspiracy against our freedoms, let's talk about the one from the Muslim world. Autumn, you like guns. That's why your X handle over on what used to be Twitter, that's why your Twitter handle is Autumn Likes Guns. So if somebody wanted to find the vice chair of the LP Mississippi, then they would just follow Autumn Likes Guns. But is there anything else that you want to share or plug before we let you go?
Well, as you know, my main account got cut, so I've had to restart completely from scratch recently. So Autumn Likes Guns. And if you used to follow me and you're like realizing why am I not following her anymore, it's because Twitter hates me and they want me gone.
Then we like.
And funny enough,
we'll follow. Go ahead, Autumn. Go ahead.
It's funny. None of these people being silenced by the media have been cut by Twitter. Candace Owens still has her account up. Tucker Carlson still has his account up. I post pictures of me and my mom and my breakfast for dinner and did a few mildly liberty posts and I'm gone.
Trust me, I'm Meta. I've got like all of the red flags that says that they hate you. On every time I log into Facebook, it says your account is under threat. Autumn, what are people like you? If you're a danger to people like Mark Zuckerberg, then I think, and apparently Elon Musk, then you must be doing something right. Autumn, thank you for your time. We like guns too, so we'd like to have you back sometime soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Now, we are a little bit tight for time, so I probably can't do my Islamic bit. Well, obviously, I'm not going to be telling the same jokes about Muhammad. I'd feel very comfortable telling about Jesus Christ. And that's because, fun fact, I'm not a fucking idiot. So if you're a Christian and you're sat there thinking, well, that's not fair. He make jokes about Christians all day long, but he won't make the same sort of jokes about Muslims. Well, then maybe, as a Christian, you should think about blowing something up. Hey? No one's scared of you. What are the Christians going to do? Forgive me.
All right, guys. So was the CIA threat against Tucker Carlson entirely made up? Will Chamberlain, a real lawyer from the Article 3 Project, discusses the shocking possibility Tucker is faking his own persecution to cover for his back-channel coordination with Iran. The truth behind the text is next. Stay tuned.
In the bustling port of Norwich, Connecticut, on January 14th, 1741, a boy was born who would one day be hailed as a lion of the Revolution, then cursed as its greatest villain. Benedict Arnold came from old Rhode Island stock, descendants of governors and merchants. But life hit hard early. 11 children in the family. Only he and one sister survived to adulthood. Yellow fever claimed the rest, and his father's business crumbled under debt and drink. Young Benedict was sent off at 11 to apprentice with an apothecary in New Haven, learning the trade of drugs and trade goods, but nursing a burning ambition that never quite found peace. By his 20s, Arnold was a merchant captain, sailing sloops loaded with rum, horses, and West Indies sugar through stormy seas and British customs nets. He hated the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, every tax that squeezed his profits. He joined the Sons of Liberty, smashed windows in New Haven protests, and burned effigies of tax collectors. When Lexington and Concord exploded in April 1775, Arnold didn't wait for orders. As captain of the governor's 2nd Company of Guards, he seized New Haven's powder magazine, marched his men north, and rode hell for leather to Cambridge. There he pitched a wild plan, seize Fort Ticonderoga's cannon to bombard the British out of Boston. The Massachusetts Committee gave him a colonel's commission. He linked up with Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys at Castleton. The two egos clashed, Arnold in his crisp blue coat demanding command, Allen's buckskin ruffians refusing to follow a down-country outsider, but they agreed to share the glory. May 10, 1775. Under moonless dark, they rowed across icy Lake Champlain in bateau, stormed the sleeping British garrison without firing a shot. In the name of the great Jehovah and the Continental Congress, Arnold bellowed as the redcoats surrendered. 83 cannon fell into Patriot hands, the iron that would thunder from Dorchester Heights and force the British evacuation. Arnold wasn't satisfied. He pushed north, captured Crown Point, then dreamed bigger. Take Canada, make it the 14th colony. Washington himself picked him for the insane march. September 1775. Arnold led 1,100 men through Maine's wilderness, raging rivers, black swamps, snow in September. They portaged bateau over mountains, ate dogs, boiled shoe leather, lost hundreds to starvation and desertion. But Arnold got 600 survivors to the Plains of Abraham outside Quebec by November. Reinforced by Montgomery, they attacked on New Year's Eve blizzard. Arnold charged at the head, musket ball shattering his leg below the knee. Blood freezing in his boot, he refused to leave the field until the assault failed. Montgomery dead, the army broken, Arnold limped away on a makeshift litter, still barking orders. Back in the fight by summer 1776, he built a scratch fleet on Lake Champlain, gondolas and schooners hammered together from green timber. At Valcour Island in October, outnumbered 3-1 by Carleton's British Armada, Arnold fought a savage running battle, then slipped his battered ships through the enemy line under cover of night. He delayed the invasion of New York for a year, time the Patriots desperately needed. His finest hour came at Saratoga, 1777. Passed over for promotion by Congress, jealous rivals, petty politics, Arnold seethed under Horatio Gates' command. But when Burgoyne attacked on October 7th, Arnold, relieved of duty but unable to sit idle, leapt onto his horse, rallied troops without orders, and led a mad charge straight into Hessian lines. "Come on, boys!" he roared, saber flashing. His brigade smashed Bremen's redoubt. His horse shot from under him, leg shattered again by a musket ball, the same leg. Burgoyne surrendered 10 days later. Saratoga turned the war. France joined. The tide shifted. Washington called Arnold's actions decisive. But glory soured fast. Court-martials over minor charges, promotions delayed while lesser men rose, endless slights from Congress. Arnold married Peggy Shippen, a loyalist beauty from Philadelphia. Debts piled up from wartime expenses, he fronted himself. Resentment festered into bitterness. By 1779, secret letters flowed to British headquarters. In 1780, as commander of West Point, he offered to sell the fortress, key to the Hudson, for $20,000 sterling and a brigadier's commission in red. September 21st, 1780, he met Major John Andre in the woods near Haverstraw. Plans exchanged, Andre captured 2 days later by militia irregulars with incriminating papers in his boot. Word reached Arnold at breakfast with Washington himself. He bolted, horse thundering down the river road, British sloop Vulture waiting to whisk him to safety. Washington, stunned, ordered Andre hanged as a spy on October 2nd. Arnold escaped, but the plot collapsed. West Point held, the Hudson stayed American. Arnold fought on for the British, raiding Virginia, burning Richmond, torching New London in 1781, his own birthplace. But the war ended in defeat. He fled to London with Peggy and their children, lived out his days in exile, shunned, pensioned, haunted. Died June 14, 1801, buried in an unmarked grave at St. Mary's Church, Battersea. He was brave beyond measure.
Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Over the weekend, Tucker Carlson released a reportedly bombshell video claiming that the CIA is allegedly preparing a criminal referral to the Trump DOJ because they intercepted his communications with Iran. Tucker is kind of playing a martyr, but according to some top legal minds, the story doesn't really hang together. There are growing whispers that Tucker may have discovered that his backchannel talks with Tehran were unmasked by U.S. intelligence. Now he's maybe inventing a deep state conspiracy to get ahead of the actual facts. So was Tucker the peace whisperer in the White House, or the bait in a high-stakes intelligence feint directed by Donald Trump himself, that 3D underwater chess? More importantly, is Tucker lying to his own audience to escape the consequences of his behaviors? Joining me now to break down the legal mechanics and the sort of counterintelligence reality, Senior Counsel for the Article 3 Project, Will Chamberlain. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Will, we're glad to have you here today.
Always good to be with you, Austin.
Will, you responded to a tweet over the weekend agreeing that Tucker may be lying about the CIA intercepting his comms.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from a very well-informed source, with who that source being in contact with senior administration officials, both the CIA and the DOJ, who said they had not heard anything about this. So basically that Tucker is just, at least with regards to the idea of there being either a criminal referral or a criminal investigation, just making it up. It's not happening.
Right, because if Trump knew Tucker was talking to the Iranians, which the CIA certainly would have reported, why would the president invite him into the Oval Office on February 23rd, just days before the attack?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, if Tucker's, this is the really bizarre thing about this, right? I think Tucker made this story up or just extrapolated wildly from some underlying facts. Like, I think, he admitted himself in his video that he had been talking with Iranians into the run-up of the war. Well, we can logically deduce from that if he was talking to Iranians prior to the war, that the NSA would have intercepted those transcripts, like assuming those Iranians weren't just random irrelevant civilians, but were people with some connection to the Iranian regime. So obviously that those get swept up every time. Like, that's not even a question. And the fact that he's talking to them would have also been of note to the NSA. That would have been something that raised a few flags, I would think. So very likely President Trump was in fact aware that Tucker was talking to Iranians.
In the highly unlikely and somewhat bonkers world, if Tucker is right, if Trump did use Tucker to sort of feed Tehran assurances, then in that scenario, then Tucker may have unknowingly facilitated the decapitation of the Iranian regime.
Right. Like, if that actually happened, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which, because, if Tucker's right and there's a criminal referral, well, there's two possible grounds that would make sense for a criminal referral, maybe, right? One is this Foreign Agents Registration Act, but it's not clear that Tucker would ever be an agent, right? I don't think Tucker's taking money from the Iranian government. Tucker's super wealthy. Why would he bother? He's just not inclined. I think Tucker's kind of this true believer in thinking he's running his own independent peace foreign policy project, basically, that involves sidelining Israel. But that's sort of his thing. It's like, okay, well, if that's what he's doing, then what other possible basis for a criminal referral could there be? And the obvious answer is, if he was in his discussions with President Trump was told anything about the sort of American attitude towards Iran and passed that information along, even if it was something seemingly innocuous, like President Trump saying, I don't know if I'm going to strike. If that got passed on, that sort of statement got passed on to the Iranians, well, that's a transmission of national defense information, and that's a crime, even if it's not classified. So that's sort of where my mind was. Like, if you're saying you've said two things that I'm taking as true, right? You were talking to the Iranians in the run-up to the war, and you believe there's a criminal referral coming out against you. And then I add to that the fact that you recently were in the White House with President Trump right before the war. I can sort of come to the conclusion of, like, well, there is a logical basis for a criminal referral here, and it would involve you transmitting some of the, passing on some of what was said by President Trump to the Iranians.
I have to say that it is deeply entertaining to consider that the possibility that Trump may have been responsible for the fall of the Ayatollah Khomeini. There is an irony in it that makes it the most entertaining of all conclusions. But sadly, one of the boring realities of politics is how boring usually the explanation.
This would have been so much more fun. It really would have been.
Yes.
But we did get the meme video out of it, right? The meme video is really great. The one with, like Tucker and the Ayatollah outfit being like, you guys are totally safe. It's fine.
I know. Well, yes, that one was funny, but did you see the one where it's him and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey and Candace Owens, and they're all sort of like worshiping the cardboard cutout of the Ayatollah?
I did not see that
They
one.
went after my boys so hard, and boy, am I in trouble with my Thomas Massey friends these days. Well, I don't know what to do. We could talk about that later, because let's talk about something that matters.
Yeah.
We saw Saudi Arabia and Qatar publicly rebuke Tucker's claims about false flags from Mossad. So if Tucker was laundering Iranian propaganda, is that the predicate for the DOJ to pursue a criminal case? Because, I mean, he is affecting international politics there at that point.
That's where I'm not sure, right? And this is where it's like I need to actually, do some research on the nuances of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, because I think you actually have to be an agent. And I think I'm not, don't hold me to this, but I think it means that you need to actually have been like paid or contracted with the government, and not just merely that you're like talking with them and then passing on what they say, in your position as like a journalist or an advocate. I think that's being an advocate is different than being an agent, right? The whole idea of agency requires some sort of contractual relationship. So I mean, maybe that's the idea. Really, it's, and it's not inconceivable. I mean, again, if Tucker was talking to the Iranians, I think what people need to understand, Tucker was super indignant about it. He's like, I can talk to whoever I want. And in like some sense, that's true. But like, if you were talking to the Iranians in the run-up to the war, there are ways you could have committed crimes. Like, it's just sort of obvious that there are certain, we don't know that you did, but that just from an outside perspective, having no understanding of what was said, like, I can imagine ways you committed crimes, and they're not totally far-fetched or ridiculous either. Like, it's not that hard to have committed a crime if you're talking with the Iranians about the upcoming war. So, my big point now is, okay, now we know you were talking to the Iranians, and we know there's not like a criminal investigation of you. Like, can you show us what you were talking to them about? Like, who are you talking to? When were you talking to them? What were they telling you? What were you telling them? I mean, this seems, you don't have to be some like neocon warhawk to think like, hey, you shouldn't really be, President Trump at the time is trying to negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran and trying to negotiate a peaceful resolution pre-war. And you're running this like parallel counter diplomacy that's doing what exactly? Are you undermining President Trump in those negotiations? Like, what are you doing?
It's really challenging to understand what's happening, because you really have to dig deep through all of the lies and distortions and propaganda that people like you and I receive online. So there's so much due diligence that has to be done, even to just like provide like the proper script for a segment like this. Will, I have to ensure that I'm, asking my legal questions correctly. I'm doing my homework. I don't even have access to the level of resources that people like Tucker Carlson have in terms of money or people to work for him. But there's been such a dramatic change in Tucker Carlson from the time when he worked at Fox News. And Will, I used to kind of get laughed out of Libertarian Party meetings when I would suggest that Fox News does a lot of really good journalism if you like look on the corners, the edges of some of the fluff. But there's this thing called the brain room, and you have access to some of the world's leading experts, not just journalists, but real military analysts and experts. Now, Tucker doesn't have access to that sort of institutional knowledge. Now he's got to take the institutional knowledge from his places, the business where he worked before, and now do his own homework and his own research. He seems to have changed rather dramatically in that time. Is this a problem of access to institutional knowledge, or is this some kind of ideological quest? What do you think is going on?
I suspect that there's a guardrails issue, right? Like the sort of being within the institutional umbrella of Fox meant that there's certain directions you can't go. You have staffers who are going to stop you from doing those things, remind you that like this will cause problems. You don't want to, you want to stay within the guardrails.
I saw that happen quite frequently.
Yeah. Or did you work for Fox? I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, a long time ago. In 2010 to 12, I was the producer for a show on Fox Business Network called Freedom Watch. And there were quite frequently conflicts within our staff, because there would be like a statement of fact, in order for it to make it into a script, has to go through a pretty rigorous fact-checking process. And if I couldn't, as a producer or writer, if I could not back up with enough like primary sources of evidence, whatever claim I would put in, it didn't matter if the judge wanted to say it. He was not allowed to say it, because the producers would very vigorously correct him and say, you weren't allowed to do this. Now, that kind of situation didn't happen often, but it did happen enough to show me that like there were important standards and lines that were not to be crossed in journalistic standards and ethics that Fox News held to. So it actually made me respect that process to a certain extent, right? But nobody does that for me here.
You don't have like you know, an army. Well, I mean, Fox News is such a big entity. Their legal exposure would be enormous if they defame people. So yeah, this is sort of a really basic journalistic practice. Like, if you're going to script a statement of fact, you need to know that you have it substantiated before you say it on the air to millions of people.
Yeah. Some people are complaining. A lot of people are complaining about like what the right-wing podcast sphere has sort of descended into. And it's not to, you know, we live in a time of populism, anti-elitism. There's this wisdom of the crowds that we expected would come from the pure democracy of the anarchy of the market. But the market seems to have shown us some, instead of cream rising to the top necessarily, we have a sort of reverse effect where I guess you might say the shit rises to the top.
I mean, you have this like whole new genre of like slop posting on X is another example of this, where there's like a whole slew of people trying to explain how Iran is totally winning the war and blowing up American bases all over the region using AI videos. And I'm just, you know, I'm like, this is an improvement over the, you know, maybe we needed something like this, you know, for this mass expansion of social media and podcasting, to remember like there were actual virtues of sort of, you know, institutionalized broadcast news that we took for granted. That, you know, even as they were biased and in the tank for certain perspectives, they at least had some sort of like floor that they didn't go below. Of like, we don't overtly lie about fact statements that we can't substantiate. Like, we really do actually try to tell you things that are true.
No, Will, we have to all jump on board the latest craze or mania, the online hoaxes that exist, because, you know, it's really difficult. Will, I say somebody is in this business, it's really difficult to adhere to these journalistic standards and ethics. First of all, if you don't know what they are, if you've never worked at an institution like that, such as I have, right? You've never seen those kinds of things up close. But most people, like, the money, the draw is so powerful, Will, that there's a powerful incentive to be deceitful in this situation, right? To take money from foreign sources. I mean, do you think that there is something malign going on with Tucker to the extent of, as rises to the level of official corruption in terms of foreign payoffs or collaborating with a foreign power, or is it just the sad destruction of what was otherwise a very good career and a good man who went astray? What do you see this as? Something in between?
Yeah, I see this as, I mean, Tucker strikes me as ideologically motivated, right? That's where I see it. I don't see him as grifting, right? He's ideologically motivated to the extent he wants to build his audience with sort of provocative and sort of ridiculous guests. I think it is to get as many ears listening to him as possible to help him with his own ideological project, to maximize his influence so as to maximize the impact he can have. It's just, you know, he's sucked into the world of a very, very bizarre theory of how things work. And like, it's sort of unicausal, the idea. I mean, you can tell that his sole ideological project is making, basically, not just driving Zionists out of the GOP, right? That's like, I would call the overriding project, right? He wants a new political tent, which is just, instead of being the sort of historical or even modern MAGA coalition, is literally just like the anti-Zionist camp. And he wants that to be the Republican Party, I think, or at least whatever new party he can take over.
Is there a constituency for that?
It's not that big, not in America. Like, and I think everybody, you know, people need to realize that, like, at least on the right, there's no need for, I mean, there's whatever left-wing anti-Zionists are going to be perfectly happy in the Democratic Party going forward, because not only are they going to get the anti-Zionism, they'll get the entire socialist platform. So they don't really need a new Tucker party. And on the right, you just look at all the polling, man. The polling says that, you know, MAGA Republicans are behind the president. People are, I think, overestimating how probative social media likes are as compared to polls. It's not. You can, there's so many ways in which external actors can manipulate the appearance of popularity via bot networks, coordinated action, et cetera. It doesn't even involve like the influencer being a part of it. It's literally just external actors trying to make certain things look more popular than they are without any knowledge of the actual poster or the creator. So, you know, if you're dealing with, on the one hand, polls say 90% of MAGA Republicans support Trump and Iran, and on the other hand, there's 150,000 likes on these anti-Zionist right-wing posts, you should trust the polls, not the like numbers on the posts.
Interesting. Well, you know, I've been thinking about you and your conservative nationalist project. You know, I've been calling myself something of a libertarian nationalist, in in recent months because, you know, I find myself in a situation where many of the people in the same movement that I came from are a little bit more comfortable with like the Nick Fuentes anti-Zionist types than I personally am, right? My concern is for individualism, individual liberty. I'm pro-civilization, pro-America, pro-West. This places me at odds with, I would say, probably the majority of the American libertarian movement, which is not to say that American libertarians are everything, because there's a thriving, healthy, thoughtful liberty movement in Argentina behind Javier Milei, for example, and many other people who face actual oppression around the world. I think there's kind of a first world problems that American libertarians have, which is to say that they sort of slept under American military might and they forget the privileges that are afforded to them because of that massive military that they, you know, despise as a military industrial complex, what have you. You know, which is not to say there aren't abuses, but I guess, you know, again, the least most important thing for us last here, Will, but is there room for a libertarian nationalist in the national conservative tent? Like, I know you had Vivek Ramaswamy speak there, but I mean, isn't it really on the right, people who are for America, for the West, and people who are for the third world, which is what I think the American libertarian movement has sort of descended into? Isn't it really about like civilizationalists versus the third world?
Yeah, I think that's the way I view it, and I think that there absolutely is a place. The way I look at the economic issues, honestly, is that the way that the NACONs would say is that we're open to heterodoxy, in the sense that, like, we don't have a stance on tariffs, in the sense that we, like, you know, if people want to argue against them, okay. People want to argue for them, okay. And so we're open to questioning a lot of the orthodoxies from the old school GOP that would have said just free trade down the line, you know, libertarian economics down the line. But that doesn't mean that, like, libertarian economics is suddenly bad and wrong in all instances, that libertarian economics doesn't have a lot of insights for us. So I think it's, you know, that's why Vivek can come to our conference and you know, make his points, and people will be like, some people will agree, some people will disagree. It's not going to be uniform, and there's always going to be disagreement on those. But I think one of the big insights of the NatCons is that the economic stuff is a secondary issue compared to the sort of overarching meta issues, the civilizational issues, right? We don't get immigration right. It doesn't matter what the right economic policy is. Our country's going to be swallowed up and destroyed by the socialist left. Like, we don't, you know, if we don't get foreign policy right, then, like, our country will become massively weaker and poorer. And it's not, you know, whatever your internal economic policies are to improve things on the margins aren't going to outweigh the massive destruction that you're going to deal with, because you're no longer, like, the dominant military power in the world or the dominant trade power in the world. So it's about getting your priorities straight. I think national conservatism really does a good job of defining where those priorities should be, like, on strengthening our country.
Okay, yeah, I see some good points there, Will. I've been pretty critical of the NatCon movement, but I'll say that, you know, lately these days I've gone back to my roots and been rereading some Ayn Rand and what she had to say specifically about dictatorships as slave pens. And she had a lot of wisdom there when she was talking about, you know, like a concept such as the rights of nations. And she declared the dictatorships to have no rights of equal parity amongst nations. And I think that that's actually an incredibly valuable insight when considering the conflict between Iran or the United States, no matter whether or not you're anti-war or pro, you know, kinetic actions or whatever this is. But there's also, of course, you know, very important in pop culture, but probably one of the most criminally understudied libertarian writers, Robert Heinlein, who wrote Starship Troopers and Moon is a Harsh Mistress, was a libertarian who believed in this concept of citizenship above civilian behavior, meaning that rights came with responsibilities. And I think that too often a sort of a libertinism or a hedonism has taken over many on the right, where they don't sort of like recognize that civilization is a team sport, and that, you know, that the state of nature, or anarchy, if you will, is not a positive thing. It's forged out, you know, civilization is forged out of blood and war, out of a state of blood and war. And so I think too few people sort of forget that, right? In their zeal to virtue signal that they're anti-war, in a zeal to discuss, they've accepted what I would call broadly a form of pacifism that is really truly a civilizational suicide. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that entirely. And, I've thought a lot about this in terms of, what Tucker's doing and the sort of weirdly pacifistic project, the people who would say that any war under any circumstances is bad. It's like, well, obviously President Trump was actually, if you listen to Steve Witkoff, was in good faith trying to negotiate a resolution to the issues with Iran. And he wasn't able to do that because the Iranians were recalcitrant. And think about for a second, like if you have a military the size of the United States, that should be a coercive lever to get people to make concessions and negotiations with you so that you can achieve your interests. But what happens if your country is run by pacifists? Well, then the threat of your military is trivial because you won't use it. So it doesn't matter. So they can be as recalcitrant as they want. They can pursue whatever objectives they want, regardless of whether or not they're antithetical to your interests. You have to, Trump is not a crazy person. Trump, you can think of the 12-Day War and his forcing an end to the 12-Day War after the Midnight Hammer strikes as his attempt to first do this overwhelming display of military dominance and then stop and say, okay, now let's talk. And the Iranians didn't get the message. But like, if you're a pacifist, you can't do stuff like that. And so you're just left at the mercy of everybody else in the world and what they would do in their own designs. And I don't think that's where we want to be as Americans. I think another big mistake libertarians make is this sort of weird foreign policy solipsism it's like the blowback thesis writ large, where everything everybody else does is in response to us, as opposed to them having their own ideas about how the world should be ordered and their own ideological projects they're trying to pursue. Like Dave Smith had a great example of this tweet when he's like, Muslims just kill some of us when we kill Muslim children. Like, talk about a trite and banal view that is extremely patronizing to the Muslim nations of the world who actually have their own way of viewing things and aren't just doing things in response to America.
Yeah. Do you think Ben Shapiro is right not to debate Dave?
I mean, honestly, like, I don't see the point of it. I don't think much of Dave as a debater. I think he is, whenever I watch him, he's doing a shuck and jive where it's like he's doing make a point and then withdraw from it and make a point and then withdraw from it. And then is just doing a bunch of like just kind of being shifty. Like,
it's kind of like,
is there some big insight?
It's kind of like Jon Stewart, right? Where it's clown nose on. I'm just a comedian, clown nose off. Now I'm making a serious point and you have to take me seriously.
Right. And so it's that combined with refusal to stick by the points he makes originally, and then in the end, it's just like anti-war vibes. And it's like, okay, but I don't really think, I mean, if Ben would be a very hard person to do that against, because Ben is an extremely formidable debater who's very precise and very good at catching when people shift, even very subtly, their positions or their arguments. So, I mean, he could, I think it would be fine. But at the end of the day, like, I also don't think like Dave's not well read on this stuff. He's just not. Like, his positions are not well informed. There are much more serious and interesting, like, anti-war, or people who have a much better understanding of the Middle East that would be better opponents and more people that like would be at Ben's level, frankly.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's kind of like if you play chess with a pigeon. They just poop all over the board, knock over the pieces, and declare victory. Will, is there anything else that you want to share or plug with our sizable audience before we let you go today? Thanks for joining us.
I mean, always, I guess the big thing, given this context of this conversation, would be NatCon Jerusalem will be in the beginning of June. It'll be a very interesting conference with a lot of right-wing voices coming to Israel to kind of show Israel, kind of bridge the gap in Israeli public perception about the American right. People think that really there are two poles. There is Ben Shapiro and Dave Smith. There's actually a lot of people in between those two poles. But it's going to be really cool. Also, always follow what the Article 3 project is doing. We fight leftist lawfare everywhere we can.
Will, thanks for doing that, by the way. Appreciate that as an American who loves to live in a free country. Have a wonderful day, Will, and thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
Of course.
Today.
Later, brother.
That's Will Chamberlain there from the Article 3 Project. He's a great follow over on X as well. Make sure that you follow him there. Thanks for unlocking the bonus content today, guys. Your financial generosity to help me build this project is just deeply, deeply appreciated. Who's the real enemy? Who's the real opponent? Where is the real bad guy then? And all this stupid podcast to stand fighting. What really matters? Well, what's happening here, right here in the United States? Things like this.
I mean, Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
That is the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, who was Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, says, "You do not belong in this city, Islamophobe. You are not welcome here." A Christian Dearborn resident opposed naming a street after Hezbollah supporter Osama Siblani. You do not belong in this city. I think actually maybe Mayor Abdullah Hammoud is the guy who doesn't belong in that city. Maybe he should get out. Maybe he's not welcome here. Maybe that's the real fight that they want us distracted from. 2 billion Muslims who have waged a war against the West since the 6th century. There's the real fight. We'll be right back tomorrow at the same time, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. You'll get amazing guests. You'll get amazing discussion. And you'll get, well, looks like #1 over on Twitter this morning. #1 live show. Is that what that says right there? Live on X, #1. Trump Trap, Austin Wade Peterson. That's me. Nice. Some good numbers today. Thank you guys for everything that you do. Even when you disagree with me, the fact that you're here and you listen and you engage and you disagree vehemently and you don't run away like a little chicken. I take on ideas even if I don't agree with them because I like to consider things, right? And I like to be able to change my mind in case I'm proven wrong on something. It happens. When I do, I will inform you as to my reasons why. When I find the truth, I will share it with you. If you don't like what I have to say, start your own podcast network, damn it. And we'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show, and that's on the 4 Liberty Network.
In the bustling port of Norwich, Connecticut, on January 14, 1741, a boy was born who would one day be hailed as a lion of the Revolution, then cursed as its greatest villain. Benedict Arnold came from old Rhode Island stock, descendants of governors and merchants. But life hit hard early. 11 children in the family. Only he and one sister survived to adulthood. Yellow fever claimed the rest, and his father's business crumbled under debt and drink. Young Benedict was sent off at 11 to apprentice with an apothecary in New Haven, learning the trade of drugs and trade goods, but nursing a burning ambition that never quite found peace. By his 20s, Arnold was a merchant captain, sailing sloops loaded with rum, horses, and West Indies sugar through stormy seas and British customs nets. He hated the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, every tax that squeezed his profits. He joined the Sons of Liberty, smashed windows in New Haven protests, and burned effigies of tax collectors. When Lexington and Concord exploded in April 1775, Arnold didn't wait for orders. As captain of the governor's 2nd Company of Guards, he seized New Haven's powder magazine, marched his men north, and rode hell for leather to Cambridge. There, he pitched a wild plan, seize Fort Ticonderoga's cannon to bombard the British out of Boston. The Massachusetts Committee gave him a colonel's commission. He linked up with Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys at Castleton. The two egos clashed, Arnold in his crisp blue coat demanding command, Allen's buckskin ruffians refusing to follow a down-country outsider, but they agreed to share the glory. May 10, 1775. Under moonless dark, they rowed across icy Lake Champlain in bateau, stormed the sleeping British garrison without firing a shot. In the name of the great Jehovah and the Continental Congress, Arnold bellowed as the redcoats surrendered. 83 cannon fell into Patriot hands, the iron that would thunder from Dorchester Heights and force the British evacuation. Arnold wasn't satisfied. He pushed north, captured Crown Point, then dreamed bigger. Take Canada, make it the 14th colony. Washington himself picked him for the insane march. September 1775. Arnold led 1,100 men through Maine's wilderness, raging rivers, black swamps, snow in September. They portaged bateaux over mountains, ate dogs, boiled shoe leather, lost hundreds to starvation and desertion. But Arnold got 600 survivors to the Plains of Abraham outside Quebec by November. Reinforced by Montgomery, they attacked on New Year's Eve blizzard. Arnold charged at the head, musket ball shattering his leg below the knee. Blood freezing in his boot, he refused to leave the field until the assault failed. Montgomery dead, the army broken, Arnold limped away on a makeshift litter, still barking orders. Back in the fight by summer 1776, he built a scratch fleet on Lake Champlain, gondolas and schooners hammered together from green timber. At Valcour Island in October, outnumbered 3-1 by Carleton's British Armada, Arnold fought a savage running battle, then slipped his battered ships through the enemy line under cover of night. He delayed the invasion of New York for a year, time the Patriots desperately needed. His finest hour came at Saratoga, 1777. Passed over for promotion by Congress, jealous rivals, petty politics, Arnold seethed under Horatio Gates' command. But when Burgoyne attacked on October 7th, Arnold, relieved of duty but unable to sit idle, leapt onto his horse, rallied troops without orders, and led a mad charge straight into Hessian lines. "Come on, boys!" he roared, saber flashing. His brigade smashed Bremen's redoubt. His horse shot from under him, leg shattered again by a musket ball, the same leg. Burgoyne surrendered 10 days later. Saratoga turned the war. France joined. The tide shifted. Washington called Arnold's actions decisive. But glory soured fast. Court-martials over minor charges, promotions delayed while lesser men rose, endless slights from Congress. Arnold married Peggy Shippen, a loyalist beauty from Philadelphia. Debts piled up from wartime expenses, he fronted himself. Resentment festered into bitterness. By 1779, secret letters flowed to British headquarters. In 1780, as commander of West Point, he offered to sell the fortress, key to the Hudson, for $20,000 sterling and a brigadier's commission in red. September 21st, 1780, he met Major John Andre in the woods near Haverstraw. Plans exchanged, Andre captured 2 days later by militia irregulars with incriminating papers in his boot. Word reached Arnold at breakfast with Washington himself. He bolted, horse thundering down the river road, British sloop Vulture waiting to whisk him to safety. Washington, stunned, ordered Andre hanged as a spy on October 2nd. Arnold escaped, but the plot collapsed. West Point held, the Hudson stayed American. Arnold fought on for the British, raiding Virginia, burning Richmond, torching New London in 1781, his own birthplace. But the war ended in defeat. He fled to London with Peggy and their children, lived out his days in exile, shunned, pensioned, haunted. Died June 14, 1801, buried in an unmarked grave at St. Mary's Church, Battersea. He was brave beyond measure, brilliant in tactics, ferocious in battle. He bled twice for liberty, turned the course at Saratoga, gave the cannons that freed Boston. Yet in the end, pride, grievance, and gold outweighed honor. His name became poison, a synonym for betrayal that echoes still. But strip away the treason, and what remains is one of the Revolution's fiercest warriors.